Hey guys, it's Franklin here, and I'm going to be starting a new series called Games and Sports. Who doesn't like games and sports? So one week or one day we do something about gaming, and then another we do something about sports. And this week, since the Super Bowl has just passed, I'm going to think about the NFL for a moment and the best state rivalries in the NFL. So let's get to it. Coming in at number 5 is the Baltimore Ravens against the Washington Redskins. Both teams are fighting for the state of Washington, obviously, and Baltimore and Washington. It doesn't matter where they are, if they play in Washington, D.C., or if they play in Baltimore. It's always going to be a tight game because it's a rivalry. They might not be in the same division, but it can still be an easy game. It could go either way. It could go one way, it could go to the other, or it could be a close game either way. But in my opinion, I think that the Baltimore Ravens would beat the Washington Redskins. Let's face it, the Ravens just won the Super Bowl, and they just beat the San Francisco 49ers. What else can you expect? Yes, the Washington Redskins do have RG3, and they did make it to the playoffs as well, but they didn't make it very far, and RG3 is hurt. If they did play right now, and RG3 was still fine, then it would still be a close game, but I think in the end the Ravens will pull it out for a win. Coming in at number 4 in the list is the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. Both of them are not the most best team that you can possibly think of, but they both are even. A lot of people, if they see a game against the Browns and the Bengals, they will probably switch to a bigger one, like the Seahawks and the Patriots, or the 49ers and the Texans. Something with the two bigger teams that are better. But the Bengals and the Browns are both fighting for the right of Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio, and Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So, with the Browns and the Bengals, both start with B. Both are after animals. Browns are dogs. Bengals are tigers, if you did not know that. They're both in Ohio. Both cities start with a C. There's a lot of similarities. They both use orange. They both use black and brown. You know, they're very similar in most ways. But in the end, it really just comes down to who can play a better game. And I think that the Cincinnati Bengals would win. For the past couple of years, they've been making the playoffs, except for this past year. The Browns are one of the worst teams in the NFL, coming with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I think the Bengals have a better team overall, and they can really pack a punch if they need it. They will come out in the end, but if they get an early lead over in the beginning, then they can just take that all the way and ride it to the end of the game. Coming in at number 3 is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles. As it says up there, house divided, exactly. That's because they're both fighting for the right of Pennsylvania. The Steelers have a history, of course, with Big Ben Roethlisberger. They've had 6 Super Bowl championships, and that's the most of any team in the NFL. On the other hand, you have the Eagles, who are not doing so hot. Vic is all people talk about in the world of dog fighting because he's the most famous person who caused dog fights. The Eagles haven't had it good since that day, since when they found out. And now it seems like they're riding a low current while the Steelers are taking it up a notch. Yes, Ben Roethlisberger got hurt, but that doesn't mean he's hurt forever. He's going to come back and he can make a big recovery if he can, get better. They've had the history of Hines Ward there, one of the best players and wide receivers that the Steelers will ever see. So I'm riding on the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the game if the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers matched off. Basically, it's because of Ben Roethlisberger and his height and dynamics over Vic. Yes, Vic is a good quarterback, but I don't think he can match Ben Roethlisberger. It will be a tight game to the end, but the Steelers will pull out. Now, the final two are probably the two biggest state rivalries. And obviously, I'm going to pick number 2 as the Dallas Cowboys versus the Houston Texans. They're both very close and are both very good teams. They have a big history of the franchise, and they're both very good as of right now. The Cowboys almost made it to the playoffs but they couldn't beat the Washington Redskins, which were mentioned earlier, but they just couldn't beat them. The Texans, however, were doing amazing in the beginning of the year, and it was projected that the 49ers and the Texans would play in the Super Bowl, not the Ravens. But that isn't how it turned out. The Texans went, and once they lost to the Patriots in the middle of the year, it just went downhill from there. They only needed to win 1 out of their last 4 games, and they lost them all. They made it to the wild card, beating the Indianapolis Colts, but no one thought that they would stop the New England Patriots. They lost to them, and they lost their dreams. It was their 10th year anniversary, so it would have been nice to make it. They've never been to a Super Bowl before, but are projected to soon. They've never won a Super Bowl because they were only formed in 2002, coming from the Houston Oilers. The Texans now have a big offense and defensive line with Andre Johnson, Matt Schaub, J.J. Watt. You have a bunch of great players, and I think overall that the Texans is a good team. Not saying that the Cowboys aren't. The Cowboys, they've had an amazing history, and they have a good franchise. But overall, I have to say that the Houston Texans would beat the Dallas Cowboys. They're both good teams, and they're both fighting for the right of Texas. And right now, the Houston Texans just have their lucky break. They're doing good, they're on fire, and when they come back next year, I think they're going to start off really well like they did this year, hoping not to plummet in the end in the middle of the season. The Cowboys, though, they've had their rough patches, Tony Romo, and things like that, so they need to really get back on track soon. But it's going to be a close game. You have to admit that. Doesn't matter if they're playing in Reliant Stadium or not. If they're playing in Dallas, that's great for the Cowboys. It's going to be an even match all the way, but I think the Texans are going to pull out in the end. Coming in at number 1 is obviously the New York Jets and the New York Giants. Sorry how I say New York. But either way, the Jets and the Giants, they both have their rough patches, and especially the Jets. It's like a little brother and a big brother. The little brother of the Jets and the big brother of the Giants. They have to share a room or a stadium, MetLife. And either way, if they both play each other in MetLife, they're both going to have the home field advantage. So, who would win? Well, most people would say the Giants, and some people would say the Jets. It's very divided in your own thoughts. The Jets have a bunch, and they're known for a great defense. This year they weren't that hot, but they're obviously going to get better. They're made up of mostly rookies. What can you expect? They have a bunch of great wide receivers and a good running back. The only problem with the Jets is their controversy over a quarterback. Mark Sanchez, Tim Tebow, or even McElroy. It's funny to say that even their third stringer has a chance to beat their starting quarterback. It's a very weird controversy with the Jets. The Giants are pretty solid right now and are doing an extremely good job. They didn't make the playoffs, and they won the Super Bowl last year. They couldn't even make the playoffs this year, which is very surprising to most people. The Jets and Giants are obviously like a family rivalry. They both hate each other because they're both playing in the same place. It's just a different kind of rivalry than what you would expect of normal teams. But overall, I think the New York Giants would beat the Jets. It's because of their steadiness and their capacity. They complete passes normally, unlike the Jets, and are a great team overall. Even though I am a Jets fan and I will get criticized for that, the Giants would beat them. So, everyone, comment what your favorite team and favorite rivalry of this video is in the comment section. And remember, stay frosty!